Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewicki, and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. Elections in Lithuania are now over, the results are in, and we apparently have a change of guard. Nevertheless, the fact that the Social Democrats have won does not mean that they will form a government without the need for some negotiations. Essentially, the results are such that you will need a coalition to rule. So what is this coalition going to be, and how will it influence Lithuania's position, both in terms of domestic policies, but also in terms of its role in the region? We're going to ask these questions and more to our guests today. Petras Auštrevičius, Lithuanian MEP representing the Renew Europe group, and Sigita Struberga, Secretary General at the Latvian Transatlantic Organisation. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So let us begin.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Glad to have you with us. So let's begin with the overall assessment. Sigita Struberga, these elections are not like the ones in Slovakia, for example, because we had elections in Slovakia essentially redefining the country's foreign policy. Now, Lithuania is different, and there is a consensus there on many important issues. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. You are right. In this regard, indeed, Lithuania is different not only from Slovakia, but from several other countries. You will see, if you will look in the details, that basically the debates between the mainstream parties or those who are going to win are mainly about internal policies, while regarding external policies or foreign policies, you will see that the aims are more or less the same. And the one which is right-wing populist party will most likely not get any influence. And only if this party would get there, there would be some changes probably. But while we have this type of parties, which we have at the moment, the foreign policy will not change fundamentally. It is clear that all of the parties, except populists, they clearly have defined their priorities similarly in regards of foreign policy, and they assess Russian threat in the same serious manner.
So, Petras Auštrevičius, do you agree that in this regard we should feel safe as the region, because Lithuania has always been a very important part of regional security, and we have the leader of the Social Democrats, Vilija Blinkevičiūtė. She has a very good track record when it comes to supporting Ukraine, when it comes to speaking out about the threat that Russia poses. Even if you look at the statements made and participation in the debates in European Parliament, you can see that even by the titles that she is very much on board with the current support for Ukraine.
Well, indeed, in Lithuania we have a decades-long stable tradition for a very consensus policy line towards foreign and security policy. Well, there might be some debates about appointments, some, technical or tactical decisions within the foreign and security policy field, but no major, I would emphasize, debates concerning whom to choose as a strategic partner, whom to consider as a strategic threat, and with whom you have to, link your forces in order to withstand any pressures from outside. So we have a solid record, and I hope, because even the debate and campaign of recent elections show that there is no major disagreement amongst the traditional or mainstream political parties. Indeed, we have had a couple of new coming political parties who try to challenge, representing probably so-called peace camp. In this regard, but no major influence in this regard. Where we can see a certain change, indeed, economic and social policies. And Social Democrats are usually more pro-spending, more pro-social programs support. Here we might some change, but I really believe will be no major shift within the foreign and security policy field.
So, Sigita Struberga, there is an interesting phenomenon that has been pointed out by one of the commentators, that in Lithuanian elections, the government always loses. You don't have anyone staying for the second term, you always have change. So why this affinity for change? Is this just a matter of the electoral system in Lithuania, the political culture, or was there something in particular that made it impossible for the previous government to stay in power?
Yeah, I wouldn't say this is an easy question to answer, but from my perspective, as observer from neighboring country, I would say that first of all, indeed, here in Baltics, one of the issue is trust in governments in general, and it is quite connected with our heritage and also political culture. But on another hand, there have been some issues which made voters to question about the government's decisions. At the same time, also, I need I have to mention the fact that basically, if you look closer on the success of Lithuania at the moment, then Lithuania economically is doing better than both Estonia and Latvia. And in a way, this is the result of government's long-term decisions in Lithuania. That's why I think that there are some good results which the previous government has succeeded.
So now the coalition talks will begin. Petras Auštrevičius, how do you expect them to ultimately pan out? I mean, there has been an announcement by Vilija Blinkevičiūtė that any sort of coalition with the Conservatives is very much unlikely, that there are other partners with whom the Social Democrats are going to form a government. Can you see any issues arising along the way?
Well, election is over. I mean, at least the second round will be very decisive. By the way, I wouldn't put any dot in after the statements of the politicians. Second round will pre-decide who is who and who is a final winner. If you look at the 71 seats still to be, or I would say less, probably 67 seats to be distributed by the second round. There are equally 30-30 Conservatives, Social Democrats, other parties, representatives taking part. It's a kind of a peer competition. Usually two from the top are continuing their struggle. So it will be a decisive moment to see which of the parties will receive the biggest number of seats. I do not reject, by the way, at all the possibility for Conservatives to emerge as a winning party after the second round. But indeed, the forming of the coalition will be something different from the election. It will require more strength, more kind of tolerance and wisdom to invite right coalition partners. I believe even 3 coalition partners might be not enough in some cases. So that's why it might be a bit longer, more complicated process, which I hope will bring a stability within government, because we have to continue with the macroeconomic stability. As it was rightly mentioned, we are still only growing economy in the Baltic region. And most importantly, we have to continue our security and defense policy enforcement and implementation in order to face any challenges from outside.
And in responding to my question, you raised another very interesting issue. Sigita Struberga, can you tell us more about the election system in Lithuania? Because it is not entirely unusual for countries to have like a 2-stage system, but how will it impact the ultimate result, and why do you need a second round in the first place?
It's not my country's election system, and it differs from Latvia. But basically, the point is that in this regards, indeed, the consequences are very much about which were said about this need to build coalition. So on one hand, you have this one mandate regions, but on another hand, you need to build the coalition, and parties should cooperate. And here, indeed, when you look on the results, you see that conservatives can still gain the power. We are winning elections because the difference between Social Democrats and conservatives is not that big. But in this type of obstacles, when the parties need to build coalitions, and at the same time they have drawn red lines, as it has happened in pre-election times, this time in Lithuania, it creates challenges for politicians themselves to work further. And this is what exactly was mentioned also, that there will be a huge need for wisdom and creativity, I guess, and also flexibility. Taking in consideration that under security situation in which Lithuania is at the moment, or Baltic states in general are at the moment, the country without stable government is challenging indeed for creating more security. So that's why let's see if there will be this wisdom and readiness to cooperate despite of former announcements.
So it's going to be a test of responsibility. Sigita Struberga and Petras Auštrevičius were our guests today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you.
And I'm Jan You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us.